what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
The summer smoking season is fast approaching. Are you ready for a weekend barbecue? You're gonna need the right meat, the right sides, and the right recipe for the world's best barbecue sauce. Do not forget dessert. Welcome to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, where we've got you covered for everything you need to host a barbecue party. Let's get cooking. First, heads up, there's a new blog on lowslowbbqshow.com. It features Jake Wood from Lawrence Barbecue in the Durham area. We talk a little bit about Jake's background. We dig into the Getting Piggy With It big event that's coming up. Talk about the other things he's got going on with Lawrence Food Company outside the barbecue. That's Leroy's Taco Shop, as well as the Lagoon Bar, a place for leisure, as they like to say. Check it all out at lowslowbbqshow.com. Over at the blog, you'll find loads of other information about all the pit masters from the Carolina Barbecue Festival and beyond. And today, we're talking about some of the recipes you can find at the Low and Slow blog. Those recipes begin with what you need for your backyard barbecue from backyard barbecue expert Jeff Osborne. He shares his secrets, so let's talk about Jeff's butt. And first of all, you want to start with a Boston butt. That's a pork shoulder, about 8 to 10 pounds. You trim off the extra fat because a lot of times that cap up on the top is going to be too thick. You want to trim that down. Also, I like to put a nice crosshatch out of what's left on that fat cap. It gives you a nice look, and it allows the smoke to get in there and help that fat cook down a little bit easier. Now, let's talk about the rub. Once you've got your butt all trimmed up and ready to go on the smoker, you're going to want to rub it. Now, what Jeff advises is a ratio of 6, 3, 2, 2, 1. Now, that's how you want to measure all the quantities of the ingredients, and a meat smoking novice can prepare your backyard barbecue rub in any quantity, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to talk about measuring in cups. Yep, that's going to make you a big pile of barbecue rub, but let's put it in cups. So here's the Carolina Sweet Heat Rub. First, you start with 6 cups of brown sugar, 3 cups of fresh ground pepper. Now, you want to use freshly ground pepper. It makes a huge difference. Those fresh peppercorns, hey, put them into a coffee grinder. Don't use the fine grind. Use a coarser grind. That really opens up that peppercorn, much like your coffee. You got to open it up to brew it down good. You want to open up those peppercorns before you put it in the rub. Next, you're going to need 2 cups of kosher salt, 2 cups of garlic powder, and 1 cup of cayenne pepper. Now, you don't want to use all this on your butt at the first time. You'll have plenty left over for next time, or you can work in the ratios for your preferred quantities. Again, just a reminder, those ratios are 6, 3, 2, 2, 1. And if you missed all this, don't worry. It's all over at the blog, lowslowbbqshow.com. Just look for the Backyard Barbecue Expert. So next up, you've got your rub made. What do you do next? Well, you're going to rub your butt, and then you let it sweat. Now, for Jeff, our backyard barbecue expert, he puts his butt straight to the smoker after letting it get to room temperature and then sweat with that rub on there for about 15 or 20 minutes. Now, me, I like to let it sweat for a while, that same 15 or 20 minutes. That's important because as the juices come out of the meat, it will soak all that salt back in through osmosis. That's how that flavor really gets down into the meat. So you let it sweat, and then I like to wrap it up in cellophane, put it in the fridge overnight, and let it do its thing for several more hours. You want to get it out, unwrap it. I like to put another coat of rub on it and then let it sweat again while I'm getting the smoker going. Now, usually it'll take me 15 to 20 minutes, maybe even longer to get that smoker going. But when you do that, that's letting those flavors all sweat. Again, the salt from the rub is getting into the meat, and you're getting a nice crisp bark on the outside. Well, it's not crisp, but it will be when you put it on the smoker. So you get your smoker started. I like to do it by filling a chimney with Kingsford charcoal. I fill up the base of that smoker with the charcoal. I add the wood chunks. Once I've got my chimney going and the fire burning, I like to put the charcoal right into the bottom of it. And again, the wood chunks, I prefer pecan because I got a bunch of trees in the yard. So I cut some limbs, I let them sit 4, 5, 6 months, depending on the size of the limb. Let them get nice and seasoned up, and then cut them into chunks. Then put those chunks into the smoker. You can do it easy way. Go to the grocery store, get you an apple bag or cherry bag, or they've got pecan too. A lot of times with those, you want to let them soak for about 30 minutes in water before you put them into your fire. So you get your fire going, you get your wood on there, you let the smoke start going, get your temperature of the smoker up to about 225, 230 degrees. Allow that smoke to get to a nice thin blue smoke. That's where you don't get too much acidic flavor into the meat. You're just getting that good smoke flavor. Your smoker's up to the temperature. You get your butt into the smoke. Now, I'm talking a lot about temperatures. A lot of times I like to use an internal temperature. That's the probe that goes into the butt, and an ambient temperature that measures the temperature of the grill itself. So you have a good idea of what's going on in both places. Now, my friend Jeff, our backyard barbecue expert, he likes to put his butt on late into the afternoon and then go to sleep on his meat. I've woke up to a cold fire and an uncertain butt temperature too many times to do that. I tell you, the last thing you want to do is wake up in the morning with a fire that's gone out and you don't know what's happened with your butt and how much it's cooked. So what I like to try to do is, again, I start early. I wake up early in the morning. I put my butt onto the smoker and let it do its thing. Usually for the 10-pound butt, that meat's going to be servable. That means you can eat it at about 10 to 12 hours of cooking. However, if you could keep it going for a few more hours until that temperature gets into about 190 to 205, you're really going to be at your best point. Again, that's going to take you probably several more hours, and you may get into a couple of stall outs on it. But I promise, if you get to 190 and above, that fat's going to render down into the meat. It's going to be super moist, and it's going to be easy to pull. It'll really just fall apart in your hands. Now, one thing I also mentioned that Jeff suggests, after about 10 hours, you can start mopping the meat. I'll give you the recipe for that mop here in just a minute, but you've already gotten the smoke in there, the heat's in there, you're just still cooking. Every 45 minutes or so, hit that butt with a little bit of this mop recipe that I've got coming up. Once you've reached that 190 degree to 205 temperature on the inside, pull your butt off and let it rest. If you're planning to serve your butt later in the day, that precious pork, just let it sit out and rest probably for an hour or so. Some people, Jeff, he says set it for 15 and then it's ready to chop and pull. I let it sit a little bit longer. Now, if you feel like you're going to use it the next day or, several hours later, I always like to wrap it up in aluminum foil, then wrap it up in towels, and then put the whole Magilla inside my Yeti cooler and let it sit there, and it will continue to cook inside that cooler. It'll stay nice and warm. And I've done that for 6 or 8 hours, pulled it out. The pork is just still warm. It falls apart in your hands and is really nice and moist. So that's a good way to preserve it if you want to serve it a little bit later after you've cooked it. Let's talk about that sauce I mentioned too. This is Jeff's special recipe, and it's an Eastern style vinegar sauce. And the recipe is 1 gallon of apple cider vinegar, a half a stick of butter, and a half a cup of crushed red pepper flakes. Jeff likes to add Texas Pete to taste. Now, so here's how you're going to cook this stuff up. You want to put all that vinegar in a pot, heat it up, put the butter in it, and let it melt. Then you let it cool. You pour all that liquid back into your gallon apple cider jug, and you're ready to go. You can put a little bit of that in your little container and use it for a mop, brush it onto the butt throughout the course of that cook. After it's been on there for 10 hours or so, you just put that mop on there every 45 minutes or so, and then it's good to go. Then the leftover liquid vinegar, well, that's the Eastern style vinegar sauce that folks down east really love so much. That's your sauce offered on the side. Now, I find a lot of times that pork is so good and flavorful, you don't need sauce. Some people like it. It's up to you whether you want to sauce it or not. And all the details about this is in the blog, lowslowbbqshow.com. Again, just look for the Backyard Barbecue Expert blog. Now, I want to talk about my favorite sauce. That's the Eastern style. I used all those cooking methods that Jeff talks about, but I put my own barbecue sauce on that. And that is the world's best barbecue sauce, in my opinion. the Lexington style sauce. Also got that over at the blog, lowslowbbqshow.com. I've got my grandmother's recipe, or my wife's grandmother's recipe. She's my grandmother too. She lived in Davidson County for many years. Of course, everybody knows that's where Lexington's at. She's got close connection to the people, and she's got the great recipe from the families that were making it so good at Lexington Barbecue and Barbecue Center, Speedy's, all those places. I'm going to share that recipe with you now. First, you've got a cup and a half of apple cider vinegar. Add to that a half a cup of water. You'll want to put 10 tablespoons of ketchup in there. That's right. This is the tomato part. 10 tablespoons of ketchup, 1 tablespoon of sugar. You add a half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Then, this is the part that can be a little bit flexible depending on your preferences. Add in a few dashes of Worcestershire sauce. I like to go pretty heavy-handed there. I like the flavor of it, so I add more than a few dashes, but give it a good dose of that Worcester sauce. A pinch of crushed red hot pepper flakes. Now, you know, with the Eastern style, they use a pretty good bit of those red pepper flakes. I like to put a pretty good pinch, maybe a little bit more than a pinch. Again, depends on how hot you want it. You add more if you like it extra spicy. Then you add that fresh ground pepper to taste. Again, you want to grind that pepper up yourself. For me, I use the pepper mill. It works just fine. Grind it in there, give it a good dose. You put all that stuff in your saucepan. You cook it up until it simmers. Stir it real good until the sugar dissolves. Sometimes I use a whisk because you'll notice the tomato sauce kind of clumps up. That ketchup makes little clumps while you're cooking it. If you use a whisk or a fork to kind of stir it up, it'll break that stuff up while the sugar is dissolving. Then you remove it from the heat, let it stand and cool, and you're ready to go. You can use that sauce as well if you want to make some red slaw, or I just like to leave it on the side and apply it to the meat. Make it available as you serve it to your fans. One more sauce some people like is the Alabama white sauce. I've got that recipe on the blog, lowslowbbqshow.com. We're not going to go into that today. Check it out if you want the white sauce recipe at lowslowbbqshow.com. Okay, we've talked about the butt. We've talked about our sauce. Now let's talk about sides. If you're going to have a backyard barbecue, you need to have sides as well. I've got the recipe for Black Powder Smokehouse's best macaroni and cheese. Yeah, my man, Big Brisket, Keith Henning, he shared the details with us. We've got it over at the blog. I'm going to tell you how to do it right now. I've made this myself. It works fantastic. You take 4 cups of pasta. Make sure it's cooked. Cook that pasta, 4 cups of it, let it chill. You get 2 cups of cheese, your favorite blend, or add several of them. I like to get the shredded kind. You get them at the store. They've got 3 cheddar mixes or Colby Jack, or just mix your favorite cheese blends in there. You need 2 cups of it. 1 cup of heavy cream, 1 cup of evaporated milk, and then you'll have salt and pepper to taste. If you want to, you can add a tablespoon of melted butter or a 1/4 cup of cracker or breadcrumbs. Those are the ingredients you're going to need. So here's the directions for it. Again, all this stuff is over at the blog. If I'm talking too fast, you can get it there, but let me just walk you through how we make it. First, you're going to mix that cold pasta. Again, you've got the 4 cups of it. Chill it out. Mix the pasta, your salt and pepper, and your 1.5 cups of cheese all together in a greased casserole dish. Now, again, this makes a lot of macaroni and cheese. Maybe you want to cut that recipe in half. For me, it all went in our big casserole dish. You mix in the heavy cream and the evaporated milk into its own little container, those 2 things in one container, then pour it over your pasta. Then you take the rest of your cheese. Remember, you just put 1.5 cups of the cheese in there with the pasta. You'll have about a 1/2 cup of cheese left over. You top the pasta with that remaining cheese, cover the whole thing up in foil, and bake it at 325 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. After you've cooked it about that long, take the foil off. You want to top it with your cracker crumbs and bake it till it's golden brown. I like to use the panko. That panko breadcrumb mix worked pretty well. I put it on the top, got a nice golden brown on the top. Man, it was fantastic. Was so excited to serve that to Ronald Simmons, my man from Master Blend Family Farms, when we had our big podcast over at the Mesh Network Studios. Had a great buffet there. And again, Black Powder Smokehouse's best macaroni and cheese really makes a great addition. Macaroni and cheese is everybody's favorite side. Show up to your backyard barbecue with this. Everybody's going to love you. If you show up with the dessert, they're going to love you even more. Let's talk about a dessert. Now, I know banana pudding is everybody's favorite, and everybody's got their own recipe for banana pudding. But today, I want to give you a recipe that I got from our friend Hannah Raskin. She's the publisher of the food section. She's won herself a couple of James Beard Awards for her journalism in food. We had her on our July 4th episode in 2023. You can find that at lowslowbbqshow.com. But she also shared with me her recipe for Benny wafers. Please go check Hannah out. She's at thefoodsection.com. Really got a great product there. It's about food news. She doesn't go down the recipe road. She doesn't really necessarily go into a lot of reviews. She's simply giving you a hard news angle at the food world. I think you'll like it if you like food. So, talking about her, she shared the Benny wafers recipe, and this, you may know, is a low country tradition. It came from Miss Emily Meggett's recipe. If you don't know, she's the matriarch of Edisto, South Carolina, and she wrote a book called Gullah Geechee Home Cooking Recipes from the matriarch of Edisto. It's got 123 recipes in it, including this recipe for Benny wafers. So let me give you the ingredients, and then we'll walk through how to do it. You need a tablespoon of margarine or butter, more if you need it. The butter can be used to toast the Benny seeds, but it burns a little bit more easily than the margarine, so you may want to go with a tablespoon of butter. You need a cup of Benny seeds. Those may be hard to find depending on where you shop for groceries. I use sesame seeds, still turned out pretty good. You need a cup of sifted flour, a half teaspoon of baking soda, a half teaspoon of salt, a half cup of unsalted butter at room temperature, 1/2 cup of sugar, a 1/4 cup of packed light brown sugar, 1 large egg beaten, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Again, all those ingredients are in the blog. Look for Hannah Raskin and the Benny wafers. It's at lowslowbbqshow.com. lowslowbbqshow.com. Let's talk about the ingredients. And let me tell you, friends, I have never baked anything until I baked these cookies. So I'm a novice, 100%. I was still able to step into the kitchen, and it probably took me longer than the average bear, but I was able to do it, and they turned out great. Step 1, preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Grease up 2 cookie sheets. You want to melt a tablespoon of margarine in a cast iron skillet over medium heat, and then add your Benny seeds or sesame seeds, depending on what you get. You want to stir them around to get them good coat of butter on them. Add some more if you need to, and toast those seeds. Stir frequently until they start to get fragrant and darken just a shade. Be careful, do not burn the seeds. That will ruin the flavor. You want to make sure you get a nice toast on them, but not too much. Scrape all that into a plate and let those seeds cool completely. Now, go to your KitchenAid mixer or whatever blender that you've got. You sift your flour, you sift the baking soda and the salt, all of it together in one big bowl. We found that if you use one of those wire strainers, if you don't have a sifter, pour it all in there and shake it out. It works pretty good to sift that flour, baking soda, and salt all together in your bowl. Now, in a large bowl, this is where you get your KitchenAid mixer. You cream together the 1/2 cup of butter, that room temperature butter, and the sugar until it's all combined and fluffy. This is in your blender. Then you add gradually the egg and let it beat in there as well. Add the cooled toasted Benny seeds and the vanilla, and then you add your flour mixture into your blender. If you're using a blender, it works best. You can use a hand mixer, probably works as well. I use the big fancy KitchenAid stand mixer that my wife has. It all worked well. Just add it all in there gradually, get it good and blended up, and you're going to get a nice thick dough out of all this. Drop rounded teaspoonfuls of the cookie dough at least 2.5 inches apart on your cookie sheet. Now, I say a teaspoonful. You don't want to get them too big because it'll be hard to get them good and cooked all the way through. The Benny's wafers are supposed to be nice and crispy, very thin, small little dollar-sized rounds, silver dollar-sized rounds. So about a teaspoonful of the cookie dough onto your cookie sheets. You're going to bake them for 8 to 10 minutes at most. Keep an eye on them. Watch until they're golden brown around the edges. Then remove those wafers from the cookie sheet immediately. Place them on wax paper to cool, and then repeat until all your dough is used up. Now, you want to use a cooled cookie sheet every time you add it on there. So I like to put all the dough that I've got and can possibly fit on the 2 cookie sheets, get them in the oven, get them cooking, take them out, then get 2 different cookie sheets. So I don't have to wait around on them to cool and get them into the oven. Just kind of work that cycle like that. Again, cook them until the edges are golden brown. They'll be nice and thin and crispy, man, and they have such a wonderful taste. You bring those to your backyard barbecue. Again, you're going to be a hero. So we've talked about your butt, we've talked about your sides, and we've talked about your dessert. The 3 anchors for every successful backyard barbecue party. Use those things. You're going to be a winner. Again, all the details at lowslowbbqshow.com. Now that we've shared kind of those secrets, I want to hit another couple little quick news items before we wrap it up. Be sure and check out our friends at the Smoke Sheet. Their latest midweek edition features the Barbecue Bros coverage of the Carolina Barbecue Festival. Our buddies Monk and Speedy share their favorite samples from the festival. They give you the lowdown on what was their favorite picks. They've got a lot of great photographs of those food items as well. It's also that Smoke Sheet newsletter also has some hot links, and it's got a lot of national barbecue news in it. There's a recipe for smoked chicken bombs. And check this out, there's a video link to the Mind of the Chef episode, and that's one of Anthony Bourdain's TV projects, Mind of the Chef. So there's an episode that's focused on a low country barbecue. They've got their own barbecue party. They give you all the details in video form. They talk about one chef makes a whole hog roast, one chef makes Savannah red rice, and another makes a frogmore stew. If you need an alternate to the barbecue plan I've shared with you, check out the Smoke Sheet. If you can subscribe, and they'll email it to you every Wednesday and Friday. Find out about that at bbqnewsletter.substack.com. That is the Smoke Sheet. Check those guys out. They do a great job. A couple of upcoming Carolina barbecue events I want to share with you. The Getting Piggy With It is going to be May 18th through the 19th. That's hosted by Jake Wood and his Lawrence Barbecue Bunch, as well as Trophy Brewing in Raleigh. Tickets are on sale now. Again, that's going to benefit the Frankie Lemon School. Just look for the website for Frankie Lemon School and find the Getting Piggy With It event. Getting Piggy With It also has an Instagram page. Just want to remind you, that's Getting with no G at the end, Getting Piggy With It. And again, tickets are on sale. You'll want to hurry. They're going quickly. One other event is John G's Jubilee. It's at John G's in Peachland. That's going to be June 22nd. They've still got tickets left. Check out John G's to get tickets. That about wraps it up for this episode. Check us out next week. We're dropping a new podcast around lunchtime on the East Coast every Thursday, and we'll have more pitmasters and barbecue stories, news, and recipes. You've been listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show on the Mesh.tv network of podcasts. Be sure to visit us online at lowslowbbqshow.com. We've got podcasts and interviews with Carolina pitmasters and blogs that feature all the recipes we talked about, as well as more recipes for your favorite backyard potluck party. If you've got a show idea, question, or you want to explore becoming a promotional sponsor, just shoot me an email. That's Low and Slow Barbecue Show at gmail.com. Low and Slow Barbecue Show, all one word, at gmail.com. New sponsorship opportunities are now available as we continue to break monthly download records with the show every month for the past 3 months. And if you like what you hear in the Low and Slow Barbecue Show, please follow us on Instagram at Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Please give us a 5-star rating and you'll help other people find our podcast as well. Special thanks to our producer, Andrew Moose, and the whole team at the Mesh.tv network of podcasts. Most especially, thank you for listening to the Low and Slow Barbecue Show. Remember, for the best barbecue and the best barbecue podcast, make it low and slow.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.